how many years ago was that? 1990. So that is 25 years ago. Holy mackerel. Hi, I'm Beth Goodell. I started Island Gymnastics here on the Vineyard 25 years ago in 1990. So it's been a long time, but I've been doing gymnastics. I've been teaching since, believe it or not, since I was 10 years old. I assisted my first class when I was 10, and I'm nearly 50. So I've been actually teaching it for 40 years. Doing it, I guess, since birth. Gymnastics has been my passion, and I hope that you can learn a lot.
All right. The idea is that you just talk about your experience with movement, and it's such a broad
start. I mean, okay.
So start from the beginning.
Okay, I'll start from the beginning. Is it rolling? Okay. Gymnastics is just, there are no words to describe it as a sport, but it's been a personal journey for me ever since I can remember, I guess. I was a climber. My mom worked at the Harvard Law Library. She was a librarian. My parents were not athletic at all. My dad was a musician, an organist. And my mom was very studious and all of that stuff. And she worked at the law library. And one day, she couldn't find me, and I was, I don't know, 18 months old, and I was at the top of the shelves climbing. So I've always just loved sports, and gymnastics is, I don't know, gymnastics is the root of all sports. It's the starting point, it's the basis, and throughout the years I've learned so much about it and how it changes a child's brain chemistry and a child's brain synapses and how they think and how they operate and how they learn, how they socialize, all of these things that it's just, I guess, been a mission of mine to pass on physical education to kids and whoever wants to learn about it through gymnastics and just moving in general. I love all sports, but gymnastics, I guess, is my passion. So trying to think of some particular people that or events that have influenced me. One of the greatest probably was a guy named Walter Volodya Rosen, who lives in Eggertown. He's in his 90s now, and he has taught gymnastics for over 75 years. So he's been in 3 Olympics himself. Back in Russia when they had Olympics for peasants and they had Olympics for aristocrats separately. So this goes back into the 1930s. And he's just taught me so much about the love of gymnastics and what it does for your brain. Because every time you go upside down, every time you pick up to a handstand, every time you turn your body and you move your brain in a different way, you stack, he explained to me that your organs are now being stacked in a different way, which puts pressure on your organs in a completely new way. So if you are doing this candlestick, we call it, yoga, they have the same exercise. Now your bladder is on top of your stomach in a completely in the reverse order. So it's like an internal massage. That's how Walter described it to me. And he said whenever you go upside down, you're giving your brain so much more oxygen than it would normally get. And so for kids who learn, you know, best by sitting on the floor like this instead of at a desk, it's not just in their head. And the kids that want to put their head down, it's not just, it's actually who we are as human beings. We want to be upside down. We want to be constantly moving. You know, we weren't designed to be sitting in cars. We weren't designed to be sitting at desks. That's why we have so many people with back problems and just all of the load of physical ailments that that older people get. We don't have to age that way. You know, I'm 50, I'm almost 50, and I feel like right now I'm in the best shape of my life. I really do. I started triathlon training about 2 years ago, and so I've started doing more cardio work, and I love it, and I think that that's only helped me balance my life a little bit more, make me a little bit kinder. I'm slower when I'm not training now, and I think a little bit more, I guess, linearly, if that's a word, in a more sequential way when I have a lot of cardio training. So for me, it's really great. It's also a great complement to the gymnastics. So yeah, I think all sports are wonderful, but I think gymnastics is the foundation. It's the root of all sports, really. And there have been studies done where with little infants where, and I start classes as soon as, really, I used to have them for children who are 2 or 3 weeks old. I don't do that anymore, but even when, you know, infants are born and they're just lying down, having them lifting up, putting a toy over here, having them turn their bodies from side to side, all of this oppositional movement in swimming and in crawling. So when a child is learning how to crawl and how to scoot their bottom across the floor like this, and all the crab walks that we do, and all these oppositional movements have been studied and show that all of those progressions lead to further brain development, you know, smarter kids, kids that can think on many different levels, all of these things. So I don't know, I just find it really fascinating. A couple of funny stories. I'll try to think of some. When we were little, I was from a big family, 7 kids. My parents had us by the time they were 29. So we were really born very fast. And back then, people didn't really put their kids into activities per se, especially with the numbers of kids that we had in the family. We were just go outside and play after school. So we would set up our own little circuits and our own little obstacle courses through the yard with whatever we could find. We had the picnic table as a vaulting horse. We made our own little springboard out of a little mini tram, and we brought our mattresses down from the upstairs and we set everything up. And we'd invite the neighborhood kids to come over, and we'd go around and around for hours and hours. And it was a ball. It really was a ball. And yeah, I learned how to do my first front tuck into the water at Squibby because the water is a little softer than just straight sand. So we did the old suck and chuck method of gymnastics, which is a lot more now like what they would call parkour or street running, which is a whole nother sport, where it wasn't so much about technique. But in the sport of gymnastics, there's a lot of technique. It's all about, you know, doing things very square and doing things in a certain plane, whereas parkour is more off-axis type twisting. But gymnastics, I think gymnastics training, if I had to pick academic training or physical training for my kids, if I could only pick one, I would pick physical training, because I feel like it served them more in life. One of the best compliments I ever got was actually from a charter school student who I had here at the gym since she was probably 3 or 4. She started all the way through high school, and she became a doctor. And she said that the best training she ever received, and she's a doctor now overseas in South America in really, really harsh conditions. And she told me that the best training she ever received for her practice as a physician was gymnastics, because it trained her mentally, spiritually, physically, obviously, but just how to cope with adversity, I guess. And you know, every time I watch a kid climb up to the top of that rope over there and ring the bell for the first time, you know, it's exciting for me. And every time somebody walks in and just climbs up on the beam and didn't think that they could do that, you know, whatever step somebody is making, it's a step in bravery and towards a courageous outlook on life, I guess. So that's what I'd like to be able to offer people, particularly kids.